So, Professor, how can e-public procurement improve the present situation now in Europe? Perhaps savings, transparency, innovation, SMEs. What can you tell us about this subject?
Yeah, that's a very important question too, because as you know, we are facing very serious economic crisis in Europe. And that crisis has perhaps two major sides. One side is public deficits, is the difficulty to cope with debts coming from a past where perhaps people were not very careful about that. But the other side is shortage of demand. If you go to a company, I would say that perhaps the most attractive fact, information you can bring to them is saying that you are interested to buy something. Most companies right now, they really are fighting for demand. And there are very, very impressive facts. For instance, the number of cars produced in Europe without demand. At this moment, I believe there are more than millions. So, by all these economic problems, we are short of demand. We are not short of supply, but we are really short of demand. So we have these two problems. We have problems with public deficit, we have problems of demand. And it's obvious that, well, in system theory, you know that there is a principle that very often was formulated by Norbert Wiener in the 30s, saying that the best way of solving a problem is solving that problem with another problem. And we like to do that very much. I think in some way the problem of demand can be solved by the problem of deficits, and the problem of deficits can be solved by the problem of demand. Why? Because you see, if we are able to manage better the public procurement chain, and as you know, for instance, in Portugal we have evidences of savings higher than 12–15%. And not just that, but increasing opportunities. We can also help the companies to have more demand. Let me give you a very clear example. We developed a case study that was presented in a Spanish business school, yes, last year, of a Portuguese hospital. And usually the way they adopt to buy goods and services was by invitation, because small value contracts, everybody do that. But they were using paperwork. So of course any invitation has a bulk of paper with lots of specification and date and so on. So they just were used to invite one or two, at most three potential suppliers. Even the work of producing the zero copies and going to the post office and sending was very heavy, very expensive, very time consuming. Now they adopt electronic platform. Actually, I think is the platform with the greatest share of market in Portugal, which is Volta. And now when they implement an invitation, they just push a button, and they have the possibility of sending the invitation without any additional work to all potential suppliers registered on the platform. So this increased the opportunities for the companies, but they save money. So that's why I believe that one problem solves the other, because they reduce the deficit. They were saving, they are saving now more than 20% of the budget for goods and services. But they increase demand. Why? Because there are now many small and medium-sized firms, many SMEs, receiving these invitations. They see the opportunity on their screen of the PC, they click, they get the documents, they send a proposal. in the old times, even if they were aware of that opportunity, they had to send someone to the reception of the hospital, to wait time, to pay a lot of money to receive a xeroscopy. And this was not feasible for a small company located in north of Portugal, south of Portugal. So the webization of public markets is really a fantastic tool to disseminate any opportunity of public procurement in the whole world of potential suppliers. Now what's happening is happening particularly inside of each member state. Now imagine, with the new directives, if we can extend this to the 27 member states. So I believe that electronic public procurement, and that's why I believe politicians are now so eager to push for the new directives, new decisions and so on. It's the very convenient time to produce these changes. You know, when we have a crisis, it's the best time to make changes. So we have to be fast, but anyway, I'm optimistic because I think we will have a crisis for quite a long time. So we have enough time to introduce these changes in Europe, because so far, I'd say that in some way, we are not respecting the Treaty of Lisbon. The Treaty of Lisbon is very clear. There is a single market. The Treaty of Lisbon does not say, well, if you are private sector, we have a single market. But if you are a public institution, no, you can always buy just the eggs produced near your door. It does not say that. So when the Treaty of Lisbon, following a tradition of more than 30 years of European progress, has set up that objective, this is not compatible with the situation of having less than 4% of cross-border public procurement. And that point, for instance, was very well and very clear, emphasized by the Commissioner Barnier of Internal Market in his presentation of a recent meeting organized by DG Market and also European Parliament in Brussels. He was very clear about that, and I think it's very stimulating to listen to such an important commissioner as Mr. Barnier, emphasizing so much that change we have to implement quite rapidly. Because it's not rapidly implemented, many of those firms collapse. Why? Because in the time of crisis, opportunities from public sector are more sustainable than the others. So it's a very convenient and timely process of change.
Professor, which are the major obstacles and the major factors to adopt e-public procurement?
Well, in some way we discussed that before, but major obstacles are people, as always, because in any society problems are generated by people. So that's why people have to solve problems, because we generate problems, we should solve problems. And that's the question of change. And that's why legislation should be in favor of that. Because some member states, for instance, and we have a neighbor which adopted way, can say, well, you are a general director, you can adopt the electronic procurement, but you have to justify. Now, if you put the problem like that, of course, no general director is going to adopt the electronic procurement, because I feel myself in a risky position. So we should change that. We should give confidence to people. We should make understand them that it's a safer and it's a better, more efficient way of doing procurement. But that implies training. So that's why we are doing, as you know, a lot of training. And for instance, from this conference, perhaps we are also discussing which are the priorities in terms of European training on this area. So, attracting people, motivating people is the key secret to have success. But legislation has to support. And that's why directives are important. And I hope the member states will adopt very rapidly the new directives. Now, factors in favor are the present difficulties. Because you see, many public institutions now, the officer in charge of acquisitions is told in the beginning of the year, my dear fellow, you have less 25% of money than last year, and we hope that you buy exactly the same level of goods and services. And he says that's impossible. Okay. One alternative, one possibility is exploring electronic procurement to have more competition. When you have more competition, prices go down. So perhaps you can meet that target. So we have obstacles, but we have also positive factors. And that's why I'm very optimistic about this process of change in Europe. I believe that in 2 years' time, situation will be very different than nowadays.
Okay, Professor, thank you very much for your time. And we hopefully will see you, of course, in the conference.
And we will meet in Barcelona.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you, Professor. Okay.